In terms of February, February's going to be a relatively quiet month for updates. We've got some big things we're working on in the background. So therefore, we're just really making sure that we've fully finished some of the big updates that we did towards the end of last year. Okay, so what's changing with LOD from the point of view of stuff that you will see and you will be able to interact with? So maybe the most biggest change, and we find this is sometimes the most unnerving type of changes that we actually release, is where we change something in the user interface and often rename items, because then people have become very concerned of, oh, has that functionality changed? What's the implication of that to me? How's that going to affect what I'm doing? So one of the things that you will notice when this update gets rolled out is there will actually be a change to some of the text that you see in lab profiles and when you're looking at lab instances inside LOD. So the core component that's changed is there's a piece of text which stands for, or which says last console sync. Okay, that piece of text is being relabeled to last lab client heartbeat. Okay, now the reason we're doing this is actually so that the piece of terminology is a little bit more accurate. Okay. In terms of what we're actually referring to, and B, actually we get a surprising number of questions about, what does last console sync actually mean? So, whether that's service desk tickets or, queries to people like Corey and myself as customer success managers within the business. So, as you would have all run labs, because you're all lab developers on our platform, when you start a lab, so let's assume a virtual machine based lab, but it doesn't have to be a VM based lab. Your browser opens and the lab loads into that browser based window. That application that your VM's in, or in our case later on the containers in, for example, we describe that as our lab client. Okay, and if you've ever looked at the URL, you'll see that it says lab client at the top of the URL. Okay. So effectively, inside the lab client, there is some JavaScript code that while that application is loaded and actually on a user's or a learner's machine, that piece of software periodically sends a heartbeat message back to our infrastructure, just to sort of say, this user's still got the lab open, the lab is still active. And some of you would have actually seen when you look at the advanced page, we used to have options that talked about last console sync and how they would impact autosave. So if there hadn't been a last console sync for 15 minutes, for example, then did you want the lab to automatically save? And of course you could adjust the timer. So as I say, that last console sync for a lot of customers, the language didn't seem to align very well with what they thought it might have been. So it's just been rebranded to last lab client heartbeat. We'll have a look at that in a moment in the user interface, but that's it. It's literally a rebranding. So the most important thing is this functionality hasn't changed. There's no difference to the way that it works. The way you would configure it and manage it's exactly the same as it always has been. It's purely just to try and make a little bit more sense to people. If you was one of the people that actually attended the January Lab Developer Workshop, I did mention in the January Lab Developer Workshop about a sneak peek in the fact that we was going to change the way the duration field was implemented. So when the last Lab Developer Workshop occurred, the duration field on a lab profile was a drop-down box and you had to pick a predefined value. And I did announce on that session that box was going to be changed into something you could type into. And I did show you what the user interface was going to look like from our UAT based system. So just to obviously confirm that did happen. So chances are some of you have actually seen that within the platform, the fact that we did change that dialog box in January. So let me just create a lab profile. Okay, if I go to the advanced page, okay, you can see here that we've got the text that says when last console sync, and then obviously exceeds, in this case, 15 minutes, because of then we make a decision whether we might auto save or cancel a lab. Okay, so that's the old language. Okay, if I go across to the UAT system, okay, so if I just go across to there and just show you what that looks like now. Just a few seconds. So if I was just to create a lab profile in here and just go to the advanced page, okay, you can now see that says last lab client heartbeat. Okay, it's becoming a bit of a tongue twister for me today, that one is. Okay, so no functionality changes, just a terminology change. While I'm in the UAT system, if I just go to find lab instances and go looking for a lab instance, so let's go and look at a lab instance. Let's go and look at something that was at least running for a little bit. Okay, if I come down, you can see in the information here, it's also changed. So again, on the current LOD system, the production system, that would still say last client console sync. Okay, so just purely that terminology change. Okay, so that's all that's happening now. And just in case you hadn't spotted it, if I just go back to the basic information, so I'm back on production here, okay, you can see the change did get implemented for the duration field. So it's now a box you can type in and then specify minutes, hours, days.